Would you like to accelerate the success of your consulting business? Well, if you do, and I say if you do, then I'm going to show you 3 steps that'll actually enable you to blow up your business so that everybody knows your name. Now, I say if because the majority of consultants actually don't like standing out from the crowd. But if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to stand out from the crowd, if you're willing to stand out from the beige and boring competitors around you, then these 3 steps will allow you to become known, respected, and trusted as an industry leader in your field.
I will never be the same, 'cause that's what it takes.
Hi, my name's Russell Pearson and welcome to Your Consulting Business Podcast, episode 137. You know, there are all sorts of consultants out there, and in fact, if we looked at the LinkedIn world, the beige and boring LinkedIn world of consulting, one consultant basically looks the same as another. And so how do you go about standing out from that field? Well, these 3 steps I'm going to give you today are going to enable you to do that, and if you hang on to the end, I'm going to show you the 10 little hacks that you can use to make sure every single one of these steps is even more powerful. And if you haven't already, make sure to go to russellpearsonprograms.com where you can get a free resource designed for consulting businesses just like yours. So today we're aiming to position you as the go-to expert in your industry. Let's get started. So there are 3 things that you need to do if you want to become known. All right, so we want to become known. The first of those things is to publish. Now, most people would think, well, if I'm going to publish, I'll publish a book. And for a lot of consultants, that's the first thing that they decide to try. Unfortunately, a book takes a long time to publish. Even after you've written a manuscript, like you've done the work and you've got a manuscript in your hand, and then you take it to a publishing person who's going to put it through its process, it can take probably 6 to 8 months to actually get to the market. Interestingly, once you actually have written a book, let's say you take all the time and effort to write a book, it's still probably the worst shop front in the world because it's on a street with no traffic. And so you need to then market and promote the book to your market so that they can find it and they go, oh wow, this person really knows what they're doing. What I've found in my experience is most people who want to write a book are still working out what they either have expertise in or they're trying to understand their own expertise. So when they write the book, it's kind of like the certificate that the scarecrow gets that goes, yes, I now have a book, therefore I am an expert, right? So here's the hack. If you want to publish, if you want to get known quickly, then really all you need to do is publish where your market lives. And so defining the sector, defining the specific industry that you want to work with, and then identifying what publications are they already reading, watching, and listening to. So that's everything from magazines to online versions of magazines to YouTube videos and other video sites and galleries. It also comes down to podcasts and things of that nature. So if you can publish where people already are, you will accelerate your success. And there are all sorts of ways for you to submit articles to industry publications and magazines to enable you to get in front of the audience quickly. And so that would be my suggestion with publishing. On a side note, a lot of people will say, well, I'm going to publish on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is where the market is. But in actual fact, it's very much the same as writing the book. You haven't created your audience yet, and so people don't see your article when it's published. Now, there are ways to build an audience up, but if you want to do it fast, then go and publish where the market already exists. Go and speak to the editor of the publications that you would like to be in. Offer to write them 2 to 3 articles. They will have a read of them, and if they're any good, they'll publish them. That's the fastest way to actually get known through publishing. So the second way, if you want to get known quickly, is to present. So presentations, whether that be presenting workshops, whether that be presenting via things like podcasts, which is similar to the publishing, but you're on someone else's platform and they're probably interviewing you. But presentations, workshops, keynotes, that style of thing is definitely a way to get known. So again, exactly the same as the publishing. If you want to do it quick, don't put on your own public workshops. So you can do that. You still have to market it though. But if you can go and present at industry conferences and industry organizations and industry associations where your market lives, then you're going to get there in a much faster and much more effective way. It's basically, instead of trying to get 100 people in a room through you doing all your marketing efforts to put on your own personal workshop, you can go to their room where there is already 100 people in the room and you can speak to them direct one-to-many, right? So becoming good at presentations, understanding a simple format on how to present, learning to speak in public is a huge opportunity for you to leverage your expertise with an audience and allow them to get to know you. Presentations can be scary, and to be fair, back when I started my own presentation journey, I nearly fainted the first time I gave a 10-minute speech. But you can learn how to practice. The reason why I actually kept practicing, I'll just talk you through the story. I was given an opportunity to apply for an award, and so I did that application and then found out afterwards that application required me to give a presentation. So I get on stage, I'm giving a presentation, and I start to get what I call the Charlie Browns. Now, I don't know if you know the cartoon Charlie Brown, but there is a teacher at the front of the class, and the teacher sounds like this. Wah, 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 wah.
Miss Halverson, could you repeat our assignment?
And that's how my voice sounded in my ears because I was about to faint. I held on to the lectern, took a couple of deep breaths while I had a video play, and worked my way through it. I really did not like presenting. But I get back to the office and there are 20 people who've engaged with my business wanting to know how they can work with me. And I went, oh no. Now I'm going to have to keep doing this because it is so effective. Now, 20 years pass, I've actually got to a place where I'm in the Hall of Fame of speaking, which is weird, and I actually present on a very regular basis. So presentations are a great way to be known, and here's the expert tip. You know that you're doing well when you get 2 to 3 new presentations from every presentation you complete, which means that people really liked the presentation. It's all good and well to have people, oh, that was fantastic, we really liked that, but it's far more effective when they go, hey, can you come and speak to our audience as well? Now, the third and final area of getting known is public relations. PR. So public relations, a lot of people think that you need to go and hire a PR company to do public relations, but in actual fact, you don't. You can put out very simple press releases out to news agencies, television shows, radio stations, and as long as it's relevant to their audience, then they will be interested in talking with you further. Now, it might take a little bit of a trial and error to find the right person, but when you actually do put out a press release and do create a story that people want to run, suddenly you're not in front of, a few hundred people. Suddenly you're not in front of potentially a few thousand people. Suddenly you're in front of potentially millions of people. And so that's a huge way to get known. And in fact, being seen as an expert on your area of influence, on your expertise, is a great way to get asked to present. And then sometimes even being asked to publish. And we've worked with plenty of people who've published in their own space, who have enabled them to get their own book deal, which has now enabled them to get more public relations, more opportunities on television and radio, and more opportunities to present. So they all really work with one another very well. So how do you go about doing this? Well, same as I said at the start, right? Where does your audience hang out? This is an ongoing theme, right? You might have seen it. Defining your specific audience and knowing where they are allows you to know what places will they be watching or listening to enable you to be seen. So what stations do they engage with? What publications, again, do they engage with? Who can I be sending out media releases to? There are the program editors. There are the program managers. These people exist online and you can find them if you look them up, same as the editors at the magazines. They're actually not that hard to find. And we're not just hitting them with stories about our new website that launched, we're actually hitting them with stories that are highly relevant to what their audience wants. And we're going to add something else that's going to bring every single one of these up to a whole nother level. So I'm going to give you those in just a moment. Now I'd like to show you how you can take what I just showed you around publishing, presenting, and public relations, and you can amplify it so it gets much bigger and broader impact, but also gets much deeper engagement I've got my 10 favorite hooks that I'm going to teach you so that you can make any piece of content creation so much more powerful. And if you haven't already, I'd love you to click the subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notified when the next episode of this show becomes available. You know, we create content for consulting businesses just like yours every single week, and I'd love you to become a subscriber, and I'd love to know more about what's happening in your consulting business. So make sure you leave comments and ask questions along the way. So here are the 10 hooks, and I'm going to speed run them for you. Number 1, the surprising statistic. There are 443,000 businesses, there's more than that actually, that went out of business in the last 12 months just here in Australia. Now, there's only 26 million people in Australia, so that is a huge number. That's an example of a surprising statistic. If you can make the statistic about the audience you're trying to engage, they're going to enjoy it more because it has something that they can learn about themselves. It has that wow factor. Number 2 is the big question. The big question is along the lines of what I asked at the start, which was a closed big question, which is, would you like to accelerate the success of your consulting business? Now, that's a global type question. The majority of people would say yes, unless they've already built the big business. But whether it's a yes or a no, you're looking for something you probably sort of know the answer to already, because if it's a no, they're going to go out. It's very binary. The other option is to ask big open questions, maybe something along the lines of, what will you do when your business finally hits $1 million? All right, that's another big question you can ask. Gets them into their head and start thinking about future casting the opportunities that they could potentially have when they reach that goal. Number 3 is the bold statement, the thing that you're actually saying. So my bold statement, for instance, is the majority of consulting businesses go out of business because of coffee conversations. And now that's a bold statement. Some people might go, that's nonsense, Russell, but they want to know why. And I can tell you why 100%, which is that people spend so much time in coffee conversations and in meetings that they shouldn't be in, that they're wasting energy in all these different places, because at the end of the day, the only businesses that go out of business are the ones that give up. If you keep going, if you keep saying yes to running the business, it will continue to go. You don't just run out of business because of a financial hiccup. You have to say, I quit. Right? Which is a tough thing for me to say, but another bold statement. And so people are spending all this time having coffee conversations, especially early in their business, because they like the idea of talking about their business, but it is wasting time, it's wasting energy, and it's wasting focus for where they should be spending their time, which is to actually engage more prospects in prospect type conversations rather than allowing people to pick your brain. Number 4 is call out the enemy. And so there'll be an enemy who's trying to prevent your clients from succeeding. And so, for instance, it could be the government being the enemy, or it could be a certain type of person that's wanting to push an idea that is in opposition to your idea. And so, for instance, I'm in opposition. I'm calling out those people who want RFPs out there, request for proposal. Request for proposal is a good way of not creating a great solution, because it means that you're trying to come up with a solution without working with the company to design it together. And so the enemy for me and the enemy for my clients is these RFPs that waste people's time, mean people that actually put their proposals out there and they might win 5% of them. They're spending hours, and if they're a solo consultant, they're working into the late hours or the early hours of the morning doing all this work, and they're not winning as many of these engagements as they should. So you'll have something in your world. Who is the enemy that you can call out? Who is the person you can throw stones at? That's a great hook. Number 5, the weird situation. Now, this is really good if you're in a weird situation. So maybe you're writing a story and I was traveling down the Nile on my way to the 3 pyramids, right? It might be a weird situation. It might be a commonplace situation. I don't know. But it's a weird situation for your audience, and probably a weirder situation for you. Then they're used to seeing you in one thing, and now you're somewhere else. Weird situations are great because sometimes you don't even have to call them out. You can actually look behind you and the weird situation is there. I shot a little video the other day that had a whole bunch of kangaroos behind me, but I never mentioned the kangaroos. Yet people were engaged and they were talking about the kangaroos, and of course they were talking about the thing I was discussing, because it had hooked them in. It had gone, what is going on and where is Russell? That's an example of a good hook and a weird situation. Number 6 is the secret. You've got a secret and you're going to tease it out. Ideally, you want the secret to be attached to either an outcome or preventing a problem that people have. But if you've got a secret or a secret you can tell, it's kind of like whispering in the ear of your client and your prospects. They want to lean in and they want to know, what is the answer to that? What is the secret that you want to tell me? And so revealing secrets is a great way of hooking people in, because it means you've got some secret information. And what I love about that too is I always talk about the archetype of the consultant. There is the Arthur and the Arthur myth, which is like, here's we've got the king, or the person who's going to become king. Ideally, that's our client. We're working to make them successful. We are the Merlin, right? We're standing on the left-hand side of those people, and we have secrets. We have our cloaks, and we have our secret knowledge and the things that we know that other people don't know. And so that's why the secret is a really good hook that you can use as a consultant, because it creates more of that archetypal mystery. And that's always going to be useful for you and your brand. Number 7 is the fun fact, some quirky thing, something about how big an ant is versus how much it can carry. Maybe it's an analogy for you to tell a story about leverage or wherever it might be. But quirky fun facts are they're the thing that people turn to in the magazine, or they turn to in the newspaper, and they will often read those and they will skip a lot of the news. The same thing happens within content creation, whether it be publishing, whether it be presenting, or whether it be using those hooks in public relation and all sorts of different media releases. Quirky fun facts engage people in a sort of curiosity. And so finding fun facts or little curiosities about your industry and about your market could be really useful hooks that you can bring into any content creation. Then we've got number 8, a number of things. So the 7 ways to avoid bad brand management or something like that, right? These are listicles, which is a terrible name, right? But that's what these things are. Articles that are also lists is a listicle. And so people will often write articles that are in a list format, and people engage in that. Now, I put out recently 101 ways to get unstuck in your business. And people love it because suddenly there's a number of things. There's a quantification to the answers that I'm going to give you. It's no different than the 10 hooks that I'm giving you right now, and I'm counting them down. The great thing about lists is, and numbers of lists, is like if you're at 1, you know that there's going to be 6 more in a 7-step list. And so it will keep you engaged as you're working your way through, which hopefully that's happening right here and now. Number 9, and probably one I should have put at the start of the engagement, which is call out a specific audience. In fact, I always call out the specific audience, which is consulting businesses, or those people wanting to create a successful consulting business, right? But you're calling out a specific audience. Dan Kennedy, who is a fantastic copywriter, calls this the dog whistle. The dog whistle is blowing the dog whistle. You can't hear the noise, but the dog hears the noise. It's calling out your audience where no one else notices because they see it's about some other audience, so they ignore your content, but your audience really pays attention. So if I put out an article that says, if you're a consulting business, then you're going to want to read these 3 steps. The people who have a consulting business are more likely to continue reading, where it actually scares everyone else away. What I love about marketing is it's very much like magnets. You've got this very cool thing with magnets where one side attracts, but the other side, because of the polarity and the alignment, actually repels. And so you want your marketing, or the best type of marketing, will attract and repel at the same intensity. Repelling people by actually not talking about them, and attracting people by calling out a specific audience, another great hook. And finally, number 10, give me a drum roll please. The unpopular opinion. So the thing that you can call out and say that a lot of people will go, I don't feel comfortable with that, even though it's probably got some real truth in it. My example is pitching for work actually sets you up to be a slave for the client rather than the advisor, right? So if you're the monkey who's out dancing in front of the client, you've probably done it before, but you don't like being seen as a monkey, right? You've probably done it before. You don't like that I'm calling out that it's a bad thing to do. But if you've done as many pitches as I have, and I used to teach pitching, I've done a lot of pitching, what I find is it actually at best creates a service provider position for me rather than coming in as the advisor or mentor. If I want to be an advisor or mentor, I've got to really embody my inner medical practitioner, and I have to diagnose problems with the client. That's how I actually position myself. Now, I'm talking about content now. You're in the content because I gave an unpopular opinion. So unpopular opinions are great to start because they also not only create interest because someone wants to read, even if they're angry, they want to read further down, but they also create commentary. And so no matter what you're actually publishing in, whether it be social media or any other platform, if you can get comments on that sort of stuff, it drives it and pushes it through to a broader audience. So that's just 10 ways that you can amplify your publishing, your presentations, and your public relations so that you become known so much faster. This is how you can get known faster, but the majority of people won't do it. The idea is good, but most people will actually avoid being put in the spotlight, because if they go and step out into that spotlight, they may be seen as the imposter that they think that they are. But the reality is, you have expertise. You know how to get people from here to there. That's why you are running a consulting practice. That's why you're potentially thinking of running a consulting practice. And if you are a consultant, it can get really lonely. You can get in your own head, and that imposter syndrome can really impact your results. Because I want to see you out there as the industry leader, but a lot of people don't feel like they deserve to be in that spotlight. Well, that's one of the reasons why I created a community for consultants who work together and develop their businesses together to get faster and bigger and better results. We call it the Consulting Guild. And if you're interested to know more about that community and about the educational programs inside it, you can go to theconsultingguild.com. You can put in an expression of interest and we will send you all the details. Who knows, we might have you in the Consulting Guild in the very near future. If you put these things in place, if you put these things in practice, if you go out there and publish, if you go out there and present, if you go out there and do more public relations, you will be known more. And because you are known more, people will raise their hand to work with you more often. And if you apply those hooks, those 10 little hooks at the start of any of that content creation, you're going to have much more impactful content, more impactful engagements with the people who are watching, listening, and reading what you've got to say. My name is Russell Pearson. This is the Your Consulting Business Podcast, episode 137. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notified when the next episode becomes available. And until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one.